Platform, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to come again for the expanded session of the workshop where we have ample time to interact. I want to begin by applauding the previous speakers for making my job very easy. I believe you can see that much of what we have shared in the opening session has been virtually the same, and of course this session is not going to be so much different. The topic remains religious motivations to interreligious and intercultural dialogue towards peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, an Islamic viewpoint. As I said earlier, we are all living witnesses to what we call Nigeria. We are either products of making the country what it is today, or we can be subjects of changing the trajectory of what we see ensuring today in Nigeria. As a country, Nigeria is a blessed nation from all angles. We have the human resources, we have the natural resources, and we have the religious resources. In fact, you can hardly go to any nation in the world where religion is being taken seriously as Nigeria. It's a good sign that we are godly people. Is it not so? At the same time, some among us choose to manipulate the religions we follow. In fact, we politicize religion. We criminalize religion. And all those things are sources of concern to any true believer in God. And I want to believe this workshop is targeting that as well. So looking at our collection as a people from religious and cultural angle, we said Nigeria is having more than 200 million people, more than 250 ethnic groups, cultures, and people with diverse identities, living almost in the same communities. What do you expect? You will see misunderstandings, you will see misconceptions, and you will see a lot of negativities coming from one angle or another. So as a nation and as a people, we need to find a common ground, a common space where we all meet to see to our issues. And that platform is none other than dialogue. From the Islamic perspective, the textual evidences that we hold on to interact with any non-Muslim, to interact with anybody outside our own cultural affiliations, they are there. The source of our own creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has informed us severally that we are created from a single soul. Ya ayyuhan nas, ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. That all people fear your Lord who created you from a single source. So if you think you are from elsewhere, not that single soul, maybe you are not part of us. So God has made us to be from a single source, and that has been Adam through his wife Eve. And we are made into many, many species of males and females. And this is what we are here. Both genders are fully represented, isn't it? So because of that, we can see that Islam is embedded with what we call humanity sense of living. Our source as humans is one. And of course, in another place, God has said, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Again, all people, all mankind, you see, no affiliation to any religion. All people, all mankind, we have created you from a pair of male and female and made you into nations. Into what? Nations, and made you into tribes. You see, our cultures are manifesting. Not only you are from Nigeria, from Niger, from Cameroon, from USA, anywhere. That has been the grand plan of God. So you finding yourself as a Jukun, for example, as an Igbo man, as Igala, as Tula, as what again? Tangalewaja, isn't it? The Fulanis, the Hausas, the Kanuris, isn't it? It's a plan from God that he has made you into tribes. But why? This is the question. Are we just made for segregation's sake? God said no. Lita'arafu, for you to know and identify one another. Wherever you go as a Hausa man, for example, once you see a Hausa man in Egypt, you can easily say, wannan kaman namu na gida ne, ko ba haka ba? As a Waja lady, when you go there, you see another Waja. You can easily say, this one is from my tribe. So it's not for you to say that, okay, because I am met Waja, I cannot be with an Igbo man or an Igbo lady or a Yoruba lady, for example. No. To know and understand one another. But on the question of religion and spirituality, only those who are very pious with God are the elevated ones. I hope we are getting this. So, coming from religious angle, we should understand that no religion will deprive you from having interaction with one another, but do that based on guides, based on respect. So the dialogue we have been talking about, what is it and what is it not? So dialogue as a concept is a form of communication. Communication can be verbal, can be non-verbal, can be gesture, isn't it? Because even the impaired can also dialogue. So they don't verbally communicate, but they do with gestures and signs. So it's a form of communication. Not only that, but also interaction. So it's a collection of action and word or wordings. Not only talking, but also interacting. Where individuals or groups engage in a thoughtful and respectful exchange of ideas. So it's not just to sit down and be discussing. No. You listen to the other as the other listens to you. You also exchange perspectives. Okay, this is my perspective to this. The Christian perspective has been presented. And now we are listening to the Islamic perspective, isn't it? You also exchange experiences. Reverend Tawase has told us what he has went through. Reverend Tudux did the same thing. So we are exchanging our experiences how to cooperate and live together. So such a dialogue session, whether intercultural, interreligious, business dialogue, whatever form of dialogue, has to be with active listening. You have to listen, but listening with the ear of understanding, not listening to reply or to respond instantly. Listen to understand. And of course, it is guided by empathy. You should empathize, feel the emotion of the other, be in the shoe of the other. Don't just feel different, but have a shared feeling of that particular instance that you are dealing with. And of course, you should be open to understand different people's opinions, perspectives, and viewpoints. This is what dialogue is all about, and this is what we want us to understand. The second part is very important because not only knowing what it is important, but also knowing what it is not. So part of what dialogue is not is conflict or confrontation. You don't be in a dialogue session in order to have confrontations or to conflict with one another, with rancor, with whatever. No. It's not about conflict, it's not about confrontation. You know, sometimes people will want to solve a problem, but instead of understanding the situation and facing it with the spirit of dialogue, they face it with the spirit of confrontation, and they end up compounding the situation. So in dialogue, we don't need that. Of course, it's not monologue. You know, dialogue from dio to, isn't it? But monologue from mono one, isn't it? It's not monologue. It's not only you talking and the other listening. It's not only the maybe one part dominating the discussion or overpowering his or her ideas or the group's idea over the other. No. It's mutual exchange of information, of experience, of whatever you have in order to have a common ground. And it's not also a debate. Many of us maybe have participated in one debate or another, or we have witnessed one or seen one happening. In debates, people want to win their arguments. They want to bring powerful points to downgrade the other. But this is not happening in dialogue. Debate is a win-lose affair, while dialogue is a win-win affair. You win, I win. This group wins, the other also wins. So we go with the spirit of mutuality. And it's not about imposition your belief, your ideas, your perspective on others. No, you try to explain for others to understand, to learn, and to get educated from your own side, and so also from the other. And of course, it's not superficial conversation. It's not a casual talk that you just discuss without any meaning or without any purpose attached to what you are doing. So, we talk about interreligious dialogue. By that, you know that it contains people of different religious affiliations, from different religious backgrounds. Here we talk about Muslims and Christians. But don't forget also there are Buddhists, there are Hindus, there are animists, for example. There are also people from the traditional religious practice. So whenever that dialogue session is being taking place, people of diverse religious backgrounds are to be considered. So also, part of the dialogue we have is intercultural dialogue. This one is about having people from different cultures, ethnic backgrounds, to come together to discuss common problems, common issues for common good. So also under the religious banners. So when there are land border crises, when there are regional factions, when there are intertribal conflicts, for example, you call for intercultural or intertribal dialogue. Sit together, discuss the issues, understand them, and get a way out for the betterment of all. As Muslims, we have to understand that these things are not from nowhere, but they have backgrounds from, as I began saying, the Islamic sources of evidence. But this one, we want to see from the theological angle, from historical perspectives, and to align with the contemporary initiatives that promote interreligious and intercultural dialogue. We quoted a verse earlier, emphasizing the creation of man from the pair of males and females and being divided into nations and tribes. This very verse is talking about appreciating the creation of God as to either male or female, as to either in one tribe or another, and of course into religious groups. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, He said, we are bound to differ. وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. The creation of man, or the man or mankind, they are bound to differ. And that difference comes in every pattern. Our texture, our color is not the same, isn't it? Our height, our weight, our gender, our socio-economic backgrounds, whatever you look, you see differences. In our religions, we are also different. So to appreciate that, you need to be guided by the dictates of the religion you follow in order to be a vanguard of peace and, of course, for community development. So the idea of dialogue is about mutual understanding. Let's have that in mind. Mutual understanding. You understand the other, and the other understands you. So from history, what do we have? They say history is the record of the past, isn't it? And our futures, our present, are being shaped by our history. So we have historical antecedents that guide us as Muslims to engage in dialogue. Our torchlight for anything we do is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, isn't it? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to follow his footsteps. So out of that, even before he became a prophet, he participated in an alliance. That alliance is interfaith and intercultural together, because it was an alliance called Hilful Fudul, making different people from diverse backgrounds at Mecca, where they stood to defend the less privileged and those who are being wronged by others. So this is a collection where the prophet, before he became a prophet, he participated in that. This is history. And after he became a prophet, he made a pronouncement that if he were to be called to the same activity, he was referring to Hilful Fudul, he would be glad to be part. What was that? He was saying that even now as I am a prophet, if I am to be called to participate in that kind of activity, alliance or dialogue or interactivity, I will join. And subsequently, he joined a lot of things with people of different cultures, different religions. In fact, when he migrated to Medina, the first constitution that was drafted, it was based on the collection of people from different cultures, different regions in Medina, and different religions, because there were Christians, there were Jews, and in fact there were pagans. And that constitution took care of the rights and privileges of each of them. And that was out of the dialogues they had at different times, and they came up with the constitution. So you see, we have record that is telling us you can participate. A lot of examples are there, but we are mindful of time. I know when Malam Yakubu comes, inshallah, he will give you more. Now, in our present time, what do we have as examples that we can lay our hands on about dialogue? A center founded by an imam and pastor, the Interfaith Mediation Center, based in Kaduna, by Muhammad Ashafa and Pastor James. It was out of the religious tensions. You know, Kaduna is known, or has been known, as a tension ground for religious conflicts. The Kafanchan issue, a lot of things have happened which made them to come together as leaders of Muslims and Christians groups to come and see how they can foster peace from their own angles. And out of those efforts, the Interfaith Mediation Center was formed. I was once invited to this center to make a presentation of this kind, I think around 2017 or so. So it's a very well organized setting where Muslims and Christians and even from other religions can come together and have a peaceful discussion. Likewise, there is a Sultan Foundation for Peace. Sultan Foundation is founded by the present Sultan of Sokoto. It's also ventured into these activities, bringing people of different religions and cultural backgrounds together to have way out of challenges and problems. The charger to this system is signaling going down. You have umbrella organizations for Muslims and Christians in Nigeria. You have the Jama'atun Nasr al-Islam, you have the Christian Association of Nigeria. They are doing a lot towards cementing relationships between Muslims and Christians. From organizations, you have the Da'wah Institute of Nigeria and the Development Initiative for West Africa, all based in Mina and Abuja. We have a center in Gombe called Community Peace Dialogue and Interfaith Initiative. It has been in the forefront of organizing seminars, workshops, and mediating dialogue sessions. In fact, they have been into villages where issues have erupted. I was personally part of a lot of their activities, going to places where there are religious tensions or there are intertribal conflicts. As a follow-up to this, whenever there is a workshop or a seminar, we used to have a unique group that we call Interfaith Peacemaker Teams. These Interfaith Peacemaker Teams, they are from different religions, Muslims and Christians or traditionalists, and of course from different cultures, from same community or from different communities. All these are geared towards ensuring peaceful coexistence and community development. So what is the nature of interreligious and intercultural dialogue? What are those things that we should have in mind when engaging in such sessions? Number one is respect for diversity. We have talked about how much diverse the humanity is, but at the same time being humans created by one single creator. So any form of diversity that we have within us is a sign of the omnipotence and of the grace of God to us. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. That is part of the signs of God, that He creates the heavens and the earth, and He makes differences in your languages and your colors. So differences in languages are not our own making, but they are the makings of the Creator for us to appreciate and understand one another by way of language and by way of color. In interfaith or intercultural dialogue, always we try to seek for common grounds. What are common grounds? What are those things that we share in common? What are those things that unite us together? But at the same time, we don't forget our differences. On this, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking to the Prophet, He said, in relation to the people of the book, He said, "Ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa'in baynana wa baynakum," that come to common terms. What are the what? Common terms. Those things that we agree on. So those common terms or common words between people of different religions or cultures are to be emphasized and to be maintained in those sessions. And of course, there should be a goal to promote peace and justice. Not only to talk about some other trivialities, no. You talk about how peace could be ensured in communities, either being affected or as a preventive measure. And you can dialogue in order to ensure justice done to anyone. So all these are very important aspects of dialogue. I don't think so. Yeah, okay. They are very important aspects of dialogue. Also, we take dialogue as a means of education. As we said, you say your part to the other. They listen, they understand, and they get educated. You also listen to them with the mind of understanding. So all these are very important when it comes to dialogue. So it's also part of it. No, the projector. You make commitments in order to build relationships. Building relationships is one of the outcomes of dialogue. You don't just talk and leave. No, you build relationships. You sustain them and you hear from one another or follow up with one another. This is very important also. It's also part of dialogue to try to address contemporary challenges. An instance was given as to dilapidation of a road network in a community where Muslims and Christians live together. That is a common challenge. So if you come together as a community representing Muslims, Christians, and whatever, you can come and repair that road. When there are issues, let's say, for example, the issue of banditry, the issue of kidnapping, the issue of a lot of insecurity issues, come as a community and address those challenges that are bedeviling your society. So when all these are respected, you can see you will have a fruitful dialogue session and you will have very germane outcomes. It is very important also that just like you have life challenges as a people, as an individual, as a community, as an institution, so also dialogue as an avenue has some certain challenges. Part of these challenges are manifestation of religious extremism or intolerance. The participant in the dialogue or in the affected community, they may have some sense of extremism or intolerance. Some people may show that they are not comfortable with that. How can a Muslim sit together with a Christian? How on earth, are you following? A Fulani man will sit with a Kanuri trying to iron issues. Do you understand? So you have to lower down, keep all egos aside, keep all superiorities aside, and come to the common terms. You may find a challenge with political interference, especially in Nigeria. We have seen a lot. Our political elites, especially, they manipulate our religious groups for their own political agendas, isn't it? They will want to go to the other group to pump them against the other, and they will go to the other also against the other one they have gone earlier, all to create enmity in between, so that they will apply their divide and rule agenda. Are you following? So political interference is one of the key issues that hinder the success of dialogue, whether intercultural or interreligious or interfaith. Lack of education and awareness. Part of this workshop is to make us understand that these are what our religions can offer in terms of stamp for us to participate in those dialogue sessions. So for one who is unaware of that or who is not properly educated may think different. Economic disparities. Some who are in the higher ladder of economic well-being, they may think, why will I be in the same session with the downtrodden, isn't it? With those less privileged people. So that disparity, if not addressed, may be a hindrance also. Communication barriers. If there is language difference that may hinder fruitful interfaith or intercultural dialogue. So have a common communication medium, a language that each and everyone understand to guide the communication. And of course, there are security concerns. I remember when the issue of Boko Haram was so much in place, everyone is afraid of any other one. Not to talk of come together and discuss. You are thinking, in this room, will there not be someone who is going to make something fly, isn't it? A lot of things will come to mind. So those concerns are also valid and they are there. And in some cases, you may find misconceptions and stereotypes against or from each of the groups. Ni musulman nan kaza kazan sunan ne bai min ba. Ba na son kaza, oh, the other side. Isn't it? Ba zama da Kristoci ba su zo su ce ma kaza. Are you following? All these are examples, and I know Dr. Nelson is also following. Okay, in Nigeria, we can say we have all reasons. Are we together? We can say we have all reasons to venture into interfaith and intercultural dialogues. Why? Because we have a history of religious and cultural diversity. We have said that. So when you have different people, you have a lot of challenges. So the common place is for you to have dialogue. Are you following? So dialogue is always our way. I hope this distribution will not disturb us. And in order to ensure peaceful coexistence, we need to be engaging in dialogue. Because there is no answer to any misunderstanding than dialogue. Sit down, face one another, discuss the real issues with open mind, and you will get out of the problem. Also, conflict resolution. We have conflicts at different levels and in different places. In order to address that, you may find, as small as your student union is, you may have some conflicts erupting between maybe the leaders and the members. Sometimes in between the leaders there are problems. So the best way to resolve those conflicts is through dialogue. Promoting national unity. We emphasize that in our National Youth Service Corps is for national unity, isn't it? To ensure that whatever your difference, you go to the other part of the country, you do a 3-week mandatory campaign to be together with different people from diverse backgrounds, and then you serve in other places outside your comfort zone. So all this can be also promoted through dialogue. Political and social inclusivity. We all complain of being excluded from political offices, from appointments, from this, from that. Dialogue is always the answer. And of course, it's a means of promoting education and awareness while counteracting extremism. I want to highlight, before we move on, that we are not operating in a vacuum or in a vacuum. There are many intercultural and interreligious initiatives in Nigeria. I have mentioned some. But it's good to make them clear, to understand that there are many people and many organizations that are concerned about the conflicts, that are concerned about insecurities from within and without Nigeria. We mentioned the Dawah Institute of Nigeria, we mentioned Interfaith Mediation Center, the Sultan Foundation for Peace, Kuka Center for Faith and Leadership. I remember we had a joint workshop with Kuka Center and the Dawah Institute of Nigeria. Reverend Tawase is a living witness. Of course, there are some religious and interfaith councils across Nigeria. They are doing their jobs in order to ensure within small communities, small groups, peace, reign, and development ensured. MashaAllah. You also have youth initiatives where they organize workshops, seminars, symposia for the youth full age. For example, you have NACOMYO, National Association for Muslim youth organizations. You have YOWI-CAN, the youth wing of CAN. I remember we had some programs together also. The Nigerian Interreligious Council, NIREC, is also very formidable in doing these activities. So now, because of time, let's look at the strategies, because these are part of the practical that you are going to do, demonstrate tomorrow, inshallah, practically. So have this in mind. For any dialogue to be successful, there must be clear objectives. Clear objectives. 1. 2, create safe and inclusive spaces. Safe, there is no challenge of insecurity or whatever. And they are inclusive, they can take care of all the participants. If they are gender-based, make sure male and female can sit in that comfortably. If for Muslims and Christians, make sure the venue is very comfortable for all. And of course, use dialogue tools and techniques. There are various dialogue tools and techniques. Some use structured conversations to dialogue. You have your own point, they have their own point, you discuss. You can use storytelling. For example, some dramatize. And I don't know whether we are going to have a drama session for this workshop. And of course, some use some other techniques that, okay, you just sit down, listen to this, respond, listen to this, respond. So we are going to see which one you are going to use. Also, build trust and rapport. Build trust and rapport. Rapport means creating that connection, mutual connection between yourselves. So I know you have been doing it, but you can consolidate that from today till tomorrow and beyond. So, promote common values and goals. The common ground we emphasize, there are values and there are goals. There are shared values among Muslims and Christians. Make sure they are respected. There are common goals that you want to address. Make sure you stay on them. And of course, you empathize. We talked about empathy earlier. Feel the pain of the other. Be in the shoe of the other. And at the end, make sure you encourage joint projects. Joint what? Projects. Meaning after the dialogue, you should have a project to do together. Let's say, as an instance, after your practical session tomorrow, you say, okay, we want to ensure that no environment is littered within the vicinity of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And people will see you going, picking the litters, sweeping the ground. These are joint projects. You can also say that after this workshop, we will make sure that we will be having regular outings to sensitize people of the university community. These are joint projects. Think of many. And you should also have follow-up actions, follow-ups. We tend to forget. So have follow-ups. Okay, on call, maybe WhatsApp groups, whatever. Have you done this? Make sure this is done. These are follow-ups and actions. So let's look at second to the last part, which is also part of what we are going to do as part of the practical. Modus operandi of dialogue. After we have seen its nature and what not to do, there should be initiation or invitation to dialogue. Either party can initiate, and we are going to see that practically tomorrow. Make an appointment, meaning make the invited party know of the plan, date, time, venue, and of course what to be discussed if you are initiating. Make formal introductions, know who is around and who you are interacting with. Make sure you have your etiquettes and modalities of conducting the sessions. Your presentation should be guided by facilitators or moderators. There should be proper conclusion, having what you want to work on or your findings, and then you have your follow-up sessions. So some other things are for projection and the projector is not working, but you should know that dialogue is always the key to proper mutual understanding and community development. So as participants, your role is bridge building. You know bridge building. Let's say there is a gap in between bridges. Your work is to cement the gap, to make sure the bridge is well constructed. I have takeaways for us. Whenever you are in a dialogue session or interfaith group, make sure you seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Don't push your idea, no. Wait till you understand, then you pass your own. I hope this is clear. 2, understand and appreciate your differences. That is why we said we are not so much the same. But what binds us together is also much. So understand and appreciate your differences. Live and let's live. Live and let others live, and communicate properly with meaningfulness. Don't talk in what they call in court, in plain terms. Make your point very clear. Listen more and talk less. Listen more and talk less. And finally, you should know that you can agree to disagree, but that should be agreeably. I hope this is clear. Inshallah, I stop here, or I put a pause, hoping that what we presented is going to be a guide to all of us, and we prepare well for the practical session tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum.
With the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum. And let me also as well greet you with a greeting of our beloved Prophet Jesus alayhi salam and Nabi Isa. Shalom alaikum. These two greetings have a similar meaning. The meaning of both the two greetings is, may peace be unto you. Mala Aliyu have a very wonderful presentation, and of course we are expecting this from him. You all know him. Whenever you see Mala Aliyu behind a podium, anywhere in the world, just sit down and pay attention. You will definitely learn from him. I will also confess, he is one of my mentors. Don't look at the size, please. Yeah, the knowledge is not from the flesh or from the blood. The knowledge is here, is in our brain. So he has a special brain that we all tap from. And I'm sure when you go to my library or any library of one of our colleagues, you will definitely find one or two books of Malam Aliyu in our bookshelves. So thank you so much, Malam, for a wonderful presentation. He has said a lot, but I pinpointed some major points because I was taken by surprise. I thought the workshop is going to be tomorrow. It is written on the letter of invitation. But this morning I woke up and I found out that it is today. So I glanced through the paper briefly and picked out some points. The first thing that catch my attention when I look at the paper is that segment of what dialogue is not, or what dialogue is. Of course, dialogue is not a debate, it's not a conflict, it's not a confrontation, as he said. And I think the verse of the Quran complements this assertion. In the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not argue or do not dispute, do not dialogue with people of the book, that is Jews or Christians, except in a way that is best. So, no argument, no fighting, no quarreling, no shouting. If you can even afford it, if a Christian visits in your house, or vice versa, when a Muslim visits a Christian in his house, provide a cup of tea and snacks, sit down together and discuss about religion. It's just about asking simple questions about your religion so that we cannot misconceive our belief and our understanding of our respective religions. We have seen an example from the Prophet ﷺ when the Christian of Najran paid him a visit in Medina. This is one of the best examples of interfaith dialogue from the Prophet ﷺ. 60 Christians from Najran visited him in Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ received them and hosted them where? Not in the guest house, not in any other person's house, but in the most sacred place for the Muslims, in the prophetic mosque in Medina. In the mosque of the Prophet in Medina, they were hosted there, and they were fed there, they were given food, and they were even allowed by some scholars to even practice their faith in that particular mosque. They spent about, how many days, my students? They were 60. How many days? They spent about 6 days in that mosque, and they asked Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a lot of questions. One of the questions is unity of Allah. Who is Allah? And what was the reply of the Prophet? Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Allah is one and only, and Allah, He beget not, nor was He begotten, and there is nothing like unto Him. And they asked Him about the position of Jesus in Islam, and He replied with the verse of Inna masala Isa inda Allahi ka masali Adam, khalaqahu min turabin, summa qala lahu kun fayakun. The similarity of Jesus is that like Adam, he was created from dust, and Allah said be, and he came into existence. That's how does dialogue happen between the Prophet and the Christian of Najran. Of course, if you are dialoguing, if you are having a dialogue with the Christians, or if a Christian is having a dialogue with a Muslim, you should get ready to answer any, or to entertain any question. Don't go and ask, I'm telling my students, don't go and ask your pastor about Islam, or a Christian or a Muslim to go and ask his imam or a Muslim scholars about Christianity. If you want to know about Islam, go and ask the Islamic scholars. And if you want to know about Christianity, go and ask the pastors or reverends. This is very important because you must be misled. I, as a lecturer in this university, I could remember when I was taking CRST 112, I came out and asked my students to ask me any questions they like. There were a lot of Christian students there in that class. And of course, I came across funny questions, very funny questions. And if I'm not tolerant enough, some questions are too provoking. But I calmed down. I could remember one of the sisters asked me, "Sir, is this true that during Ramadan period, Muslims are mandated to kill non-Muslims? If you kill one non-Muslim, you are automatically going to the heaven, the Jannah." And I said, I didn't quote a verse, I didn't even quote a verse or hadith to her. I just answered the question with common sense. I said, "Sister, in the last Ramadan, how many dead bodies you counted in your communities?" She said, "None." And I said, "Okay, I think the Muslims do not want to go to the heaven if that's the case. Because if it is mandated for them to kill during Ramadan, if you kill one, you are going to the heaven. I think all the communities will be littered with dead bodies." Another question from, again, a Christian sister. She met me in my office. She said, "Sir, regarding eating the food of Christians for you Muslims, I heard that you look at our food like worms and maggots." You know worms and maggots. "And when we give you this food, you used to just dish it in the dishes out, or even give it back to some non-Muslims. But Muslims are not allowed to eat the food of non-Muslims." I said, "No. It is in the class filled with Muslims and Christian students." I could remember. And I still didn't quote a verse or hadith. I said to her, "Sister, you know what we are going to do? I think the best solution for this question is, next week, cook a very delicious rice for me and bring it into the class. But please, kindly put a big full chicken on top of that rice so that I can, yeah, of course, so that I can demonstrate with pleasure. Hello, assalamu alaikum. But if you cannot afford full chicken, place half, I will manage it. Don't worry about that. And by God, up till today, I didn't receive this plate. Dialogue is very important. And it's also very important to know ourselves. But as I said, ask Christians about Christians and a Christian and find out our views about Islam and about Christianity. And surprisingly, I received a lot of comments. And I asked them to put among the references, they must put phone number so that I will call that person the interview to find out whether they have done the interview or not. And of course, both Muslims and Christians are after peace and tolerance. Imposition of belief is one of the points Malam Aliyu has made in his paper. In Islam, you all know this verse is very popular. There shall be no compulsion in religion. You cannot force someone to accept this religion. Never. Because when you force him to accept the religion, it's like you are putting a word in his lips. And this faith can only be complete when you attend 3 stages. 1, verbal testimony. What's the second stage? Heart conviction. And the third stage is practice of the organ. If you pronounce the kalima from your lips, but you are not convinced about what you have said, then of course you are not a Muslim. And if you pronounce the kalima and you are convinced about what you said, but you are not practicing Islam, then still your faith is not complete. So we still see an example from our pious predecessors, especially Caliph Umar radiallahu anh, the second Caliph of Islam. Because not only imposing, you cannot even lobby or beg someone to accept this religion. You cannot say, please accept the religion. Please, can't you accept Islam? So and so and so on. You cannot do that, because when a woman during the reign of Caliph Umar radiallahu anhu met him, she met the Caliph Umar radiallahu anhu and said, and asked him for some of her needs, and Caliph Umar provided everything for her. When she was going, he asked her, please accept Islam. And that woman said, no, I can't. She was a Christian. Caliph Umar allowed her to go, but when she left, he wasn't comfortable about what he said. He wasn't comfortable. He thought he even sinned, and he sought for Allah's forgiveness. He said, oh Allah, I am not trying to force her, but I was trying to convince her to accept your religion. May Allah forgive me. Then he also had a slave, a Christian slave. What's the name of that slave? What's the name of Caliph Umar's slave? Christian slave. Say it loud. Ashak. You will definitely remember, because it is 2 marks if you could remember in your CA. Yeah, it's a question of 2 marks. Whoever didn't answer this question, then I think he didn't score the marks. He has a Christian slave, Ashak. And one day he said to that slave, accept Islam so that we can benefit from your hard work and your energy. And that slave said, but your religion said there shall be no compulsion of religion. Why are you forcing me to accept it? Caliph Umar said, okay, you are right, just go. When Caliph Umar radiallahu anh was dying, he called that slave Ashak, and he emancipated him and said, just go and find somewhere to settle. Because he's afraid maybe after his demise, his people may come to him and say, why the Caliph said you should accept religion and you said no. And they will maybe, they are ignorant among them, may likely attack him. So, in Islam, we have only 3 means of propagation. Allah said clearly, Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mau'izati al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching. And if it is possible to debate or to argue, do it in a way that is what? That is best. This is the only means of propagating this religion. Before my time elapsed, but sorry, timekeeper and MC, before my time elapsed, I want to talk about a very important issue. Common divine origin. Common divine origin. We all come from who? Adam and Eve. But I want to ask a question here. I'm not asking this question to our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm asking you and I. Why Allah created only one Adam and Eve after He have power to create millions and millions of Adams and Eve? But it's only one. Allah has the power to create Adam and Eve for the Fulani and for the Tangale and for the Igbo, for the Arab. He say, oh, this is your grandfather, grandfather, and so on and so forth. But He created only one Adam and Eve. And He said, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa batha minhuma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. O mankind, fear Allah who created you from a single individual. If you think your name is John now, and this one is Ibrahim, when you are to trace your genealogy, you will definitely meet maybe in your 50th great-grandfather. Even if you didn't meet in your 50th you will definitely terminate at Adam alayhi salam. John, Mark, Muhammad, Ismail, we all have the same blood. The blood we inherited from Adam alayhi salam. If you go to the hospital, if they are looking for a blood donor, nobody will ask you, are you a Muslim? We are donating blood to a Muslim. Are you a Muslim? No. They will just ask for your blood group. If you are O, you are a universal donor and so on. So because we have a similar type of blood, and of course, our appearance is the same. Or do you think because you are a Muslim, you have 6 fingers, one more than a Christian? Or you have 3 nostrils, one more than a Christian? Or your head is bigger than that of the Christian? Or maybe you are more educated than Muslims, or Muslim is more educated than Christian? No, we are all the same in terms of appearance, blood relation, and everything. Sorry, sister. Malam talk about the initiatives. I think that's the last headline in his paper. The role the initiative plays. But briefly, I want to say that this is what my thesis is all about. I'm studying all those initiatives, the Interfaith Mediation Center, National, the NIREC, the Sultan Foundation, and so on and so forth. And I was opportune to go up all the way to Kaduna to meet the founders of the Interfaith Mediation Center, Imam Nuraini Ashafa and Pastor James Uwe. They were 2 founders of the Interfaith Mediation Center. I could remember when I was in Imam Ashafa's office, Pastor James Uwe came in. Ashafa stood up, oh, brother, they hug each other. And I like it the way they did. And he presented Pastor James Uwe to me and said, that's the pastor, the co-founder of the Interfaith Mediation Center. And of course, the Interfaith Mediation Center has played a very vital role in promoting peace and harmony, more especially in northern Nigeria and Nigeria as a whole. They even went up to some other neighboring countries to deliver a message of peace. And Sultan Foundation, they collaborated with a lot of other initiatives, Christian initiatives and so on and so forth to promote peace. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss on this paper. And let me say and close with the same greeting I opened. Assalamu alaikum.
Come back from the break. We are now going into the details of our workshop. Therefore, I encourage you to sit back with your writing materials and jot points where necessary. Like I said, supported by my colleague, whatever we do now will be put into practice tomorrow under the nomenclature of practicum. And practicum has to do with a deliberate practice where the facilitators supervise what is being practiced. And because of that, we will be together to ensure that whatever we are talking about now will be put in practice later or tomorrow when we come to that session. It said when I was presenting the synopsis an hour ago, I am presenting on the motivations to interreligious and intercultural dialogue, towards peaceful coexistence in Nigeria. And I'll be focusing on Christian perspective. Remember, I said that in spite of our coexistence together as religious groups, we are not free from challenges. Sometimes we try to hide the challenge that is happening within the two religious groups. But I believe that we are not doing ourselves good when we hide the reality of what is happening. So it is always important that we confront whatever that is confronting us. And when we confront it, we are looking for ways that we can address whatever that is challenging our coexistence. And because of that, we try to come out with this topic based on the work of the convener of this workshop. And because of that, we will be looking at these two subjects, interreligious and intercultural, in the context of the coexistence. Now, I said, in spite of the Christian-Muslim coexistence in Nigeria, the religious groups are not free from challenges that affect interreligious relationship. Sometimes we make effort in trying to see how we can coexist together. You will still find some challenges that comes from either within and without, that challenges this idea of what we are saying that brings together two religious groups, or rather the coexistence of two religious groups to understand something that is commonly seen within the two religious groups that can be understood together. And I say the concern for the promotion of interreligious and intercultural dialogue as means of addressing this challenge is paramount. You see, there is a saying that when religion is used as a divide, the same religion could be used as something that brings the people together. In other words, we can fight our religious differences with the religion. We cannot fight our religious differences with something away from the religion. It is in the religion that we can address what we have. And therefore, because of that, we said a country that we are conscious of its multicultural and multi-religious orientations. It requires the consciousness within us. I need to be conscious as a Christian, wherever I am, that I am not alone in the country, that I am not alone in the community where I am living, that I am not alone in the state, that I am not alone where I am residing. that consciousness, it is very important in the context of interreligious and intercultural dialogue. And that's the primary thing that I want us to have at the back of our mind. The consciousness that it is the subject of we and not I or them. It is a consciousness that we are together. Now that consciousness is very, very important in understanding our differences and even bringing together that which we want to address. So interreligious and intercultural dialogue will be argued, like I said, from the Christian faith orientations. Now I want to take my time to explain some things about this interreligious dialogue, which is very crucial for us. Primarily, like I said earlier, interreligious dialogue is an opportunity for exchange and understanding between clergy, lay religious leaders, and theologians. Primarily, interreligious dialogue is actually something limited within those who are trained as leaders, be it imams, malams, pastors, and whatever nomenclatures that we have to describe our religious leaders. It's meant for them to understand themselves, because we are now using theology. When we use theology, I talk about what I know from what I have learned, not from my personal freedom of what I know, but from what my faith taught me, from what my brother's faith taught him. We engage together. And that limits the dialogue between people who are knowledgeable, people who are theologians. But like I said, the story changed a little bit, because sometimes this kind of idea stays within those knowledgeable groups. It doesn't come to the root cause. It doesn't come to the root base. It doesn't come to the society. It doesn't come to the community. And most often, when those that are knowledgeable meet at their table of dialogue, they enjoy the dialogue. But when they come home, it becomes difficult for them to translate the message to their subjects, to their communities. It becomes so difficult to teach the communities what they have learned from the table of dialogue. And because of that, we are now looking for ways on how we can now use the bottom-top approach. How do we use that? There is a way we can now ensure that interreligious dialogue is no longer limited within religious leaders, but is something that can also be taught directly to the adherents. And I will talk about that. I say here, interreligious dialogue is the most fundamental experience of life and the most powerful means of communication that promotes knowledge, abolishes fear, prejudice, and then it broadens horizon. Now, sometimes I can be afraid of something in the context of Islamic faith. Now, interreligious dialogue will take away the fear if I'm able to ask questions. I do something that I like with my colleagues from the Muslim faith. Sometimes I come to them and we discuss some theological issues. I feel free. If I know of them of something that they practice, which I do not understand, I ask them questions about it. And they tell me what they do and why they do that very thing. And vice versa, the same thing. Most often, I'm also asked with several questions in that context. Now, that promotes knowledge, interreligious knowledge, not just religious knowledge that we all have. We go extra mile to creating what we call interreligious theology. A theology that is common, that will be understood by the Christians, that will be understood by the Muslims, that will be not only understood, but will be agreed when understood, that yes, this is a theology that is also taught from our various faith orientations. It will abolish fear. I will not be afraid of my Muslim brothers and sisters. My sisters and brothers from the Islamic faith will not be afraid of we as Christians. But because we have sent away those fears, based on the openness we have through understanding, and we do not have prejudice against each other. prejudice has to do with something that we conceive in our minds, so that when a Muslim brother is talking to you as a Christian, you conceive something within your mind, and whatever that Muslim is saying is not penetrating into your heart. And the reason is because you have blocked the avenue where that thing is supposed to enter. And that is prejudice. Now, that which abolishes prejudice is that openness that we have. And opening that heart to listen, to understand. Even if you do not understand, agree the theology, you tolerate that is a theology that exists in a particular religious faith. And that is very important. And the last point there, I said, it broadens our horizons. Broadening of horizons refers to, it gives you a mindset where you see beyond the termination. You see beyond the limitation. You see beyond your own faith belief. And that is very crucial in giving us the point we are talking about. Now, interreligious dialogue has been categorized according to a very profound scholar, Gomna, to which BayKAICIID also worked on that. And I will going to explain these 4 areas. And in these 4 areas, it has actually helped in giving us a point where we will now understand dialogue not limited among religious scholars, but affecting people at the root cause of wherever we belong to. Now, number 1, interreligious dialogue is described as the dialogue of life. The dialogue of life has to do with our everyday life as adherents of different faiths. Now, in our everyday life, for example, as students, every blessed day a Christian meets with a Muslim. Every blessed day a Muslim meets with a Christian. If you don't meet in class, you meet in the market, you meet in what, there are public places where we meet. So the question is, when you meet with a Christian as a Muslim, how do you relate? When you meet with a Christian as a Muslim, how do you relate? That is the dialogue of life. You must exercise dialogue of life in that context. Now, how do you exercise dialogue of life in that context? For example, now, we all know the situation we are in. It's no longer a news. That when you go to market, you know what is happening in the market. Now, together we can sympathize with ourselves. Because when a Christian goes to buy gari in the market and he sees a Muslim closer there standing, prizing the mudu of gari. Now, your spirit can be united in dialogue, in that life reality. That the two, you can stand and say, gari, 500 naira. Hey, my sister. You see, this is a Christian talking to a Muslim sister standing. Yaya zamu yi da wannan duniya, like a Hausa man will say in our context, right? Yaya zamu yi da wannan duniya. To Ubangiji Allah ya taimake mu. A Christian is saying Ubangiji Allah ya taimake mu, and a Muslim sister will say, dan uwa, er uwa, amen. So it becomes a way of life in doing dialogue. Now, unconsciously, what you are doing there is what we call dialogue of life. You see, you have reason in what is happening in the community. Or for example, something happened and you have a way of making a statement that is spiritual in the context of life. This guy has gone to, he has just died or kicked the bucket. And le ram sheshi, like our Muslims will say, and a Christian will say, may God comfort the family. You see, you are now working towards comfort that speaks in the hearts of the bereaved person. All this works in the community life. Or we all go to the family that is bereaved, and we all have our ways of offering words of comfort in that family. It's in the context of family dialogue of life. Secondly is the dialogue of discourse. The dialogue of discourse works within knowledgeable people, theologians, scholars, those who are trained in Islamic studies and Christian religious studies, when they meet to talk about dogma, to talk about doctrines, there are places they rhyme in convergence. There are places they don't in divergence. So in that context, the dialogue of discourse there is bringing theologians, is bringing students together to dialogue on the concept of what they have. For example, Christians believe in the oneness of God, monotheism. Muslims believe in the oneness of God, monotheism. When you meet as scholars, as students of religious groups, and you talk about the monotheistic nature of God, you are doing that discourse under the nomenclature of what you believe as scholars. And that brings out a good report at the end of the day. Now that happens only within those that are knowledgeable. Those who are not knowledgeable will find it difficult to get engaged in the dialogue of discourse. If they do, then there is tendency, they may probably be talking about something they are not even aware of, because of lack of knowledge in the religious groups. And we have both people in both religious groups. It's not every adherent of Christianity that knows everything about Christianity. It is not every adherent of Islam that knows everything in Islam. And that is why all of you are here as students to learn Islamic religious studies and Christian religious studies. The third class of interreligious dialogue is dialogue of spirituality. Now, what do we mean by dialogue of spirituality? As a Christian, I believe in spiritual life. And my spiritual life is seen in my life as I move around, as I walk out things. The first thing that sometimes, or we rather allow to happen in our lives as Christians, is for Christianity to be seen in our lives, not for me to speak that I'm a Christian. It's for a Muslim, having known what Christianity is, to see what I am saying about Christianity in me, in my life. Now, for example, dressing. In dressing, if I say Christianity believes in decency of dressing, then I should be able to allow the spirituality of exercising that, so that a Muslim will see me in that state of my dressing, that yes, truly, I am who I said I am. And the same thing with my Muslim friends and brothers and sisters. That when they say this is who they are, and in the way we see them, we should be able to know that this is who they are. So my spirituality tells me what to do. And spirituality is something that is within every individual. It's not something outward. It's something within that comes out to tell me who I am when I meet people. So normally, spirituality is directed by our spirit within us. Our consciousness works in the Spirit of God in us that tells us that this person is this person, relate this way with that person. The last category is what we call dialogue of action. Dialogue of action. So what do you mean by dialogue of action in interreligious dialogue? Dialogue of action is in the community where you are living. For example, myself, I live here behind the university in Malanina. The place where I am living, I'm surrounded by Muslim families. In fact, my immediate neighbor is a Muslim family. And I am over 13 years in that place. In fact, I reduced it. Since I came to Gombe in 2006, what am I saying? It's a lot of years. I came to Gombe State University in 2006. And I have never changed place. I stayed in that place and I am still in that place, and I am surrounded by Muslims. So what does that mean? If something happened with me and I shout, the first person that will visit me is a Muslim person. And therefore I don't take that for granted. I promote that and I respect that. And I ensure that in that kind of relationship we are having, we can go out and do a certain action work in the community to help ourselves as people from different faiths. Now that is dialogue of action. A Christian comes out, a Muslim comes out and you meet together and maybe rebuild a broken bridge that is in your community. You don't wait for government to come and do that. You don't wait for anybody to come and do that. But you, as people from different religious groups, you come out and do a work in the context of action so you can help yourself. That is very, very crucial. Now, what about intercultural dialogue? What are we saying about interreligious cultural in the context of this dialogue we are talking about? Differentiating culture and religion is very difficult. Every religion, in fact, let me tell you something about Christianity. Christianity came with culture. It came with culture, and what we did was to contextualize the culture. We look into the culture. If something is bad in the culture, we kick away the culture, we take only the religion. If something is good with the culture, we take all the religion and the culture because there's something bad with the culture. And that's why you can see me the way I'm appearing with suit. I'm a Tangale person. Suit is not part of my culture. I'm a northerner. Suit is not part of our culture in the north. But Christianity came with the suit. And because it came with the suit, we discovered that there is nothing bad with the suit. Because of that, I can take the suit. And I'm not taking the suit because of the religion. The primary thing is taking the religion. And I also carry the suit as part of the fancy of myself. And that is very, very important. So what are we saying about intercultural differences that we do have? The first thing I said, intercultural differences are gifts. My culture is given to me by God. Your culture is given to you by God. Your culture is something that together we can celebrate the diversity in the culture. So we said culture is as old as a people. In fact, even before the coming of religion, there was culture. Because culture is the way of life. Culture is the way of life. So it is the orientation of the group in the context of how the people understand themselves, the way they do things. How do you dance? How do you mourn? How do you comfort one another? How do you relate to one another? All of these things are things that speaks about our culture. And these cultures varies from one ethnic group to another. And we in the north, we are blessed with different cultures. We are blessed with different cultures. So cultures are separated from one another. And I made a point that separation of culture is not an exclusion of culture. In other words, the word separation in the context of cultural differences or even religious differences is not exclusion. It's not exclusion at all. Exclusion is a negative thing. You refuse something that is coming beside you. You refuse it. You kick it away. But separation is like the way you are seated now. If Christians will come to this side and Muslims be to another side, we are separating you for a particular reason where we want to give you some examples. And when we come during the practicum, we will have something like that. We will put you into differences, exclusive group, and we also put you into a union of inclusive grouping. And all the two kinds of categorization speak something in the context of interreligious and intercultural dialogue. So separation is part of the beauty of God. From the Christian perspective, when we go to creation, there is way where God will separate between waters and the land, is to give us beauty. And that's why today, when you are on the land, you see what is happening on the land. When you go on the sea, you travel miles upon miles traveling on sea. You spend days, months traveling on sea. It becomes another world. And that tells you that all these separations is to show us the beauty of the creation of God. So intercultural dialogue, therefore, implies interaction between the different cultures that we have for the sake of awareness, appreciation, celebration of diversity and learning. What are we saying? by the time we meet as people from different cultural background, the first thing we communicate to one another is awareness. I'm telling you guys that I am here from the north. I am here from the south. I am here from the east. I am here from this particular area. And so people see all this, live with only a religious consciousness that you may be dehumanizing creatures that are in need. When you come in contact with a person that are in need, sometimes I'll be walking around and I hear somebody saying, now, I'm not a Muslim, but saying that doesn't tell me that because I'm not a Muslim, I shouldn't help that person. No. I see God in that image. God created that person. And therefore, he's asking of need. In the name of a precious prophet that he believes. Even though I'm not a Muslim, but I go to that extent. And that is the Catholicity of the spirit. When people live with that kind of mindset, I'm telling you, it abolishes differences and brings people together in interreligious lifestyle. And that is very important. An interculturally person or group is interpathic. What is interpathy? Interpathy is a concept that allows me, when I come to the Muslim community, I share my faith and reason with the faith of the Muslims. I reason with the faith. For example, if I visit the mosque, I must first of all go with a knowledge of how to enter the mosque. I will first of all understand the knowledge of the dressing I need to enter the mosque. If I gather all this knowledge and I go to the mosque, I enter there, I behave the way the Muslims behave. I don't have to be making noise because I'm not a Muslim. That's not interpathy. The same thing with my brothers and sisters, the Muslims. When I invite them to the church, they need to learn and ask to do. How do people behave in the church when they go to the church? I will tell them that in my church, when you come, you pull up your cap. And I expect my brother, my friend, to remove his cap. That is just for a meantime. That's what we call interpathy. Keeping your belief aside because you are in with my own belief, you behave like I behave. By doing that, you are respecting what I respect. And when the service is over, you go out and you put back your cap. That is interpathy. So with that, we are saying that you feel with the person. You reason with the person based on the person's belief. There was a time somebody said, we went for a condolences, and I was seated. And we were asked to pray. And a colleague, a Muslim, was praying. And I know the way the Muslims behave if they are praying. I got into that mood. And somebody is saying, are you a Muslim? Must I be a Muslim before I be in the mood that Muslims do pray? I'm respecting them. Because I'm not a Muslim, you want me to make a noise? No, that's not interpathy. I must ensure that I be in the mood. That is interpathy. And it is an important concept in intercultural and interreligious orientation that helps the coexistence. So here I made a point here. I said, the choice for a Muslim to think Christian is challenging. But can a Muslim in a particular time think Christian because of a certain scenario? Or can a Christian at a certain moment think Muslim in a certain scenario to meet a need? I have done that severally. And that is part of what we do. Not that we want, I am not, by thinking Christian, I'm not becoming Christian. By thinking Muslim, I'm not becoming Muslim. But it's just to be conscious that I have a brother or a sister who is a Muslim. And I respect what he believes. And that is very, very crucial. So in this context, what are the motivations that helps us carry out our lifestyle with our other religious adherents that we do have? I talk about Christianity as a religion that is open. It's open. Anybody can enter the church. provided you obey the rules of entering the church. Nobody will send you away because you are not a Christian. You enter, you see what is happening, because church is not a cult. Church is not a secret society. It's an open place. Everybody can enter. There's nothing hiding. You know, sometimes because of lack of understanding, we make some conceptions within ourselves. Because I have never entered a mosque, somebody will tell me that the mosque, there are places where they hide things in the mosque. Or because you have not entered the church, so you will say, there are places where they hide things in the church. But the first time I started entering the mosque was in South Africa. The first time. I must say, because that was even the first time I have the orientation that I can be able to enter the mosque. That was the first experience I have that began to change my mindset, beside or in the context of understanding our relationship. And coming back to Nigeria, in 2015, I see the need for me to be engaged in interreligious dialogue, to which, until today, I'm working in that context very significantly. So, Jesus Christ as our model, whom we walk our interfaith with him. We've got several examples that we have seen him interacting with other religious groups. Coming in the context or tradition of the Jews, he did not incline himself or limit himself to Judaism. He opened ways. And we've seen so many examples. For example, we learn about interaction between Jesus and the Samaritan woman. We've seen the interaction between Jesus and the centurion man. We've seen the interaction between Jesus and the Canaanite woman. So all of this tells us an important significance of how religious interactions are. And because of that, we don't take it for granted. Because we don't take it for granted, we know we can learn. We can reach out. So it depends on the mindset. What do I see in people before I relate with? Despite the differences in religion that we do have. The first thing is the creation of God. And that is humanity. So in interfaith, we promote human dignity first. And then the second thing is the religion. In promoting human dignity, we need to be with that concept I told us earlier, which is the Catholicity of the Spirit. Now in that context, I have brought some point that I want to conclude with it, which we will have to practice that when we come to practice tomorrow. Now, what I have just speak about here is that there is a framework that I've actually worked on during my PhD program. And I published that framework. It is called a framework of functional interreligious cooperation. Functional interreligious cooperation. Now, in this, we have three different grouping. In these three different grouping, every religious group is exclusive. When Christians meet together, they are alone. No Muslim is there. That is a religious group. When Muslims meet together, they are exclusive. No other group among them. Now the question is, when you are in a religious group, how do you talk about, or what do you talk about the other religious group? It's challenging, because sometimes when you discover that you are alone, nobody is there, you are tempted to speak against the other person. That is the temptation. Both religious groups face that temptation. But we can utilize that opportunity by speaking something that will motivate our relationship when we come together. So in the religious group, we can work on how to relate very well when we come together. Now, there is something we call intra-religious group. For example, in Christianity, we have denominations. If I am saying that we need to relate with the Muslim, and another denomination is saying no, how do we harness that? How do you discuss that to come out with a point that will be of help, that we can work towards that point? So, in this particular framework, there is a Kreisinger's point that works on it. And the Kreisinger's point that I want to conclude my point with it is that Kreisinger says There is a life of face-to-face. There is a life of back-to-back. There is life of shoulder-to-shoulder. What is life of face-to-face? Face-to-face is right now you are in the life of face-to-face. You are seeing them, they are seeing you. Christians are seeing Muslims, Muslims are seeing Christians. Christians will not say anything bad against the Muslim. Muslim will not say anything bad against the Christians because you are doing face-to-face relationship. Are you sure life in face-to-face can also be practiced when you are away, or you are doing just to care for what face-to-face can see? Now what about back-to-back relationship? Back-to-back relationship is a relationship that when Christians are in their church, what do they say in relation to the Muslims that are not in the church? When the Muslims are in their mosque or in their place of gathering, what do they say about the Christians that are not with them? Now, I am arguing that exclusive gathering can be utilized in motivating meeting with another faith. When we do that, it will help. Now, what about shoulder to shoulder as my final point? Shoulder to shoulder relationship. You know, shoulder is where you carry the burden of one another. As a Christian, I can carry a Muslim on my shoulder because of human dignity. As a Muslim, you can carry a Christian on your shoulder because of human dignity. You know, for some of us that have studied outside the country, when we meet as people of Nigeria, religion is kept somewhere else. We only work as people in Nigeria, particularly people in the north. And this is very, very crucial. So tomorrow, by the grace of God, we are going to practice and see how we discuss and even address some questions in relation to the challenges of face-to-face, back-to-back, and shoulder-to-shoulder. Thank you so much.
And the convener of this gathering, I want to acknowledge the presence of all our colleagues that are here and our students. You are all welcome to this August event. Thank you very much for coming. What can I say about this presentation? My brother has been so vivid. He has been so much interesting in this presentation about religious motivations to interreligious intercultural dialogue towards peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, a Christian perspective. Actually, most of the things you have said represents what our Christian view of interreligious dialogue stands on. Because in Christianity, everything we do hinges on what Christ did and set the example for us. He talked about Jesus' interaction with the woman of Samaria at the well, where even the disciples, when they came back and they met Jesus discussing with the woman, they were surprised that how can Jesus of all people, he will be having a discussion with this woman, having known the background of the Jews and the Samaritans. But Jesus went on and did that. And that impacted their understanding of the other. For the Jews, they didn't consider the Samaritans as good people. And therefore, there was even no need of meeting with them. There was no need of even interacting with them. But Jesus came and he gave the woman that particular opportunity. And you discover that at the end of their discussion, this woman became an evangelist. She ran to town to tell the people that they should come and see the man who had told her all about her life. And the people followed her. You know, that is what discussions with the other does. Sometimes the perspective you have about yourself may not be complete. The other person who sees you from outside can tell you better. And that is what normally happens in interreligious dialogue and even intercultural dialogue. And this is very, very important. As you people have gathered here, you are all students and you have come from various backgrounds. Some of you are Christians, some of you are Muslims who come from the same community. But because of faith, you are different from the other person. You may be from the same tribe, but because this one is a Christian, this one is a Muslim, that particular identity has now separated you, and you feel that there is nothing you can do among yourselves because you are a Christian, this one is a Muslim. No. There is need for constant discussion, understanding of one another. And you cannot understand another person unless you get into discussion with that person. And in that discussion, it clears doubts. It clears misunderstandings. It clears misperceptions about the other. I teach one course, Introduction to the Study of Religion, and I always tell the students that the mindset you have about each other matters. Because as all of you have gathered here today, there may be some people who are looking at others, what is this one doing here? Is it not just because of this workshop that we are here? No. It should have gone beyond that. Your meeting here today should initiate an interaction that will continue. The next thing is interreligious dialogue helps us explain the misconceptions. It is not an avenue for conversion. It is an avenue for explaining your own religion to the other to understand. The other to explaining his religion to you to understand why you do things the way you do. Many people have misunderstood it to mean conversion campaign, where you come to now speak to others, to convince them to leave their faith and follow your faith. No, that's not what interreligious dialogue is all about. It is all about explaining to you to know why I do what I do. And you telling me why you do what you do, so that I will have a clear understanding. Because we are all different. And we will never be the same. Our differences have been from creation. Where you have come from is different from where I have come from. Your religious conviction is different from my own. So we'll be different. But as we meet and understand ourselves in our discussions, that will help us. Above all, between Christians and Muslims, you know that we have one ancestor. Is it not so? We have one ancestor, Abraham. Ishmael was son of Abraham. Isaac was the son of Abraham. So as we are seated here, we are brothers and sisters. Is it not so? Then we should learn to behave like brothers and sisters in the same house, in the same family. There is no differences between us. And we say we are all sons of Adam. From Adam came Abraham. From Abraham came our grandfathers, Ishmael and Isaac. Is it not so? I'm asking you and you are sounding as if you don't even understand this. But that is the basic truth about it. So if you understand that we have come from the same ancestor, we should treat one another as a brother. We should live as friends, not as enemies. The next thing he talked about was Jesus was concerned not only about the Jews. He was a Jew himself, but he went beyond interacting with Jews. And this brought in other people that were looked upon as the outcasts in. He talked about the Samaritan woman. He talked about the centurion. The centurion, he was a highly placed man. in the society. He was a highly placed man in the society. But he had a need that he left that position and have to come to Jesus to meet that need. And Jesus met the need. From that day, the relationship continued. And they continued to live, to understand one another. Yes, ma'am, I'm true. He talked about the dialogue of life. You know that every day we meet with this one today, we meet with that one tomorrow. We meet as Christians, we meet in the market, we meet in the school here, we teach you in the class, and all of that. Is it not so? A Muslim in the school here will not say a Christian lecturer will not teach him, because he has come to get knowledge. Is it not so? Likewise, a Christian student will not say a Muslim lecturer will not teach her in the class. Is it not so? So as we interact on this particular basis, that should continue. When we go outside, this should not just stop because this is a class. As we are discussing here, you are all looking at us. But you will be feeling as if it is just a class we are still having with you. Today, it is not a class we are having with you. We are having an interaction with you. An interaction that we want you to take this very serious, and we want you to go out there and step it down and make sure that other students who are not part of this particular workshop understand some of these things you are hearing us say here. He talked about dialogue of life, dialogue of discourse, dialogue of spirituality, and dialogue of action. But I choose to talk about dialogue of life and dialogue of action. Where dialogue of action, like this week in my community where I'm living, our road is bad. And so they have now come out and call all of us out, both Christians and Muslims, and said we should contribute so that they will repair the road. If the road is repaired, is it only Muslims that are going to pass on it? No. Is it only Christians? No. All of us have been called to now walk towards that. And this is what should be the bedrock of our action in the society. Because with this, we can build our society. We can make it a better place as we live here. In our common actions, doing things and presenting ourselves as good people of the society. Not just to say that I am this or I am that. And that particular thing you are saying you are, people are not seeing it on you. It will not work and it will not show forth that you have actually learned something. Our coming to the university is not only to learn academics, it is also to learn practical things. So that as we go out there, or even here, we'll begin to change our environment. As we change our environment, we will change the society. Thank you very much.